Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Gary England.
Thank you very much. I thank you for being here. It's been a while since I've been down here to Ardmore. We brought the Terrible Twister show here years ago. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff in those days. Well, it's an honor to stand before you tonight. And you want to look at the Noble Foundation has done great things, continues to do great things. But the thing that jumps out at me and I really like and I get excited about, it's improving the science of agriculture. Now, why would I say that? Well, let me just share with you a little story why I would like to see agriculture improved. It has now. But back when I was a kid, I lived on a farm. And, it was morning and night, 7 days a week, feed the pigs. And the water was about 50 yards from the pigs. And I wasn't too tall, about that size then. I had to carry two 5-gallon cans of water, one in each arm, to those pigs several times in the morning, several times at night. I really didn't like that very much. Anybody here I didn't like it. That's heavy stuff. Now, the only thing that happened to me, I became very strong and everyone was afraid to mess with me. But I did that, and I can remember in August, when I was a little bit older, we built a silo in the side of a hill there. And that August, you've been in August, like here, there's no wind and it's hot and it's brutal. And I plowed, and then we sowed wheat, and you name it. We bucked, baled, pulled cotton, did all that stuff. After years of doing that, you know what I said? I got to get out of here. I just got to get out of here. I really do. Because you know how it is living on the farm. A lot of you know that. It's a tough life. And I thought, well, I'd always kind of liked the weather. Well, I will say several times when I was young, my dad expressed doubts about my future. And did he have cause to say that? Yeah, he did. I was always in trouble. And my mama, and some of you probably did this too, my mama kept telling me I was going to end up in Stringtown. I think all the mamas those days used that. But there were doubts. In fact, recently, on a news program, a television program, my wife, Mary, where is Mary? She's here somewhere. Anyway, Mary said on that program, oh, he was a wild thing when I met him. And I was. Not bragging, it's just the truth. I was a little bit wild, a little bit crazy. Well, the Colbert program, they called up one day and said, would you like to come to New York City and do the Colbert show? I'm going, yeah. I thought it was some practical joker from my hometown. And it turned out, it was a real deal. We flew up there and everything. They met us with limos, and we got to the hotel, and it looked just like a building, like a warehouse. And I said to the driver, they drove us everywhere. I said, you sure that's a hotel? He said, yeah, that's a hotel. It's a hotel is what he said. That's how he said it. Mess with me, and I'll throw you out there in the prairie. He scared me. He really scared me a lot. But so we go upstairs, we open the door, and we can see all of first of all, the windows are 20 feet high. Can you imagine? And all of Manhattan is out there before us. Oh, it was just, you know what Mary and I did? She's from Hobart, I'm from Seiling. We fell on the floor. Go, could you look at that? Let you look at that. Well, we had a great time, great show. Those of you who have watched the Colbert Report, he turns out he's a real nice guy. He came in and visited. He was very pleasant. He just warned me. He said, when I get out there, Gary, I'll be in character. And so, that's big-time TV, New York City, baby. And so I wasn't nervous. They told me, you sit right there with a red spot on your desk. Don't move. Don't stand up for him anytime. And I was a little apprehensive, a little bit, but the only time I really got nervous is when he jumped up and he ran across the studio. And I'm thinking, he's coming over here. So I could hear him in my voice saying, he's coming, this is it. And he comes over, and it was a great thing. Well, not long after returning from the Colbert Report in New York City, I ran into a fellow I'd known a long time, and he said, Gary, how in the world did you get from Seiling, Oklahoma to New York City? That's a good question. And I said to him, and I'll say to you, I didn't go from point A to point B. I went from point A to point Z, and it was not a straight line, all right? And some of you have taken that same road, I know. Well, on down that zigzag line several years, I came across an article in a research magazine. It's called Science, and it was on the brain. And I read that, and you know what it said? It said, your brain spends a large part of its time creating the world as you think it to be. Your brain spends a large part of its time creating the world as you think it to be. And I went, nah, that's not possible. But now that I've lived a little bit, a few years, there's evidence of that all around us. Think about Toby Keith. I met Toby when he's still doing the bars, trying to make it. But you know Toby was a dreamer, and Toby dreamed. Don't you know he saw himself back then as he is today? He dreamed it. He saw it. He built it. Had to think about it, and that's what happened with it. You look at, excuse me, look at all these victorious football teams we've seen around. You know, most of those kids out there on the field, whether it's high school or college, had dreamed years ago of winning, you know, a great bowl game. You know, it has to happen in the mind before it happens anyplace else. Well, I look at the Noble Foundation, and, you know, great things have happened here. Great things continue to happen. But what's fascinating when you think about it, none of it happens until someone thinks it. You got to see it, then you can do it, not before. So when you look at what all this organization does and all the great it does, someone has to think about it, someone has to create it then. Well, I would venture to say that most of you in here have dreamed about a business or a job or whatever. So really everyone has a story of dreams in your life as it goes along. But since I have the podium, you get to hear mine tonight, okay? You can't do yours, but I'll tell you about mine. When I was in the 7th grade, a guy came on television by the name of Harry Volkman. Some of you may remember Harry Volkman. He was Oklahoma's first television meteorologist, and I was so excited. We lived out in the country, and we didn't have a TV, but Mom and Dad take me to town every Sunday night to see Harry's 15-minute weather show. It was really amazing. He talked about the jet stream, the trough off, and all these things, talked about his family. And so we were in my grandma's house one Sunday. Of course, I always got right up in front of the TV, so I could watch it really close. And I pointed at Harry on the TV, and I said, Daddy, I want to be one of those. And Daddy said, well, what is he? I said, I don't know, but I want to be one. Well, so ever since I was in the 7th grade, I wanted to do what I'm doing today. I want to be a television meteorologist. I've done a lot of other things along the road. But, you know, also at that time, I watched Victory at Sea. Any of you ever remember that series? It's still on sometimes. Yeah, it's a great series about how the role our U.S. Navy played in winning World War II. It's a great series. I also watched all those movies. Some of you guys had the sailors in them. San Francisco, Girl on Each Arm. Remember that? I watched those too. So I graduated high school at the age of 17, and no surprise here, I joined the Navy at age 17 because my mind was creating the world I wanted to be in. You know, that was to win wars and get all the girls. And, you know, you can dream the big dream, but sometimes the small things don't fall into place. There were no girls on each arm. There wasn't even one girl on one arm. You know, when I got out of the Navy, I didn't, even at that time, I didn't realize that, you know, life is a series of decisions. And, you know, I got out of the Navy. I had no organization in my life. You know, I've been on an island for about a year, and I've been in the Navy 2 years, 11 months, 22 days. I'm in Seiling, Oklahoma. You know, that kind of puts a blank on you just a little bit. Well, upon arriving at Southwestern State College, my mind was not on school. I was drifting a little bit, but I was standing out between two cars. It was homecoming time, and I had my date with me there, and I see a little redhead come down the street. She walks right between these cars where I'm standing. Now, you're from Seiling, Oklahoma. You've been in the Navy. I'm asking you guys, Navy 2 years, 11 months, 22 days, just got off a year on an island. What would you do? So she walked by, and I scooped her up, and I kissed her. And my date slapped me. So I kissed this girl again, and that's how I met my wife, Mary. Mary, stand up. There's Mary. You know, she was pretty much of a prude. She wouldn't stay out late. And, you know, she just really was. And in those days, they locked the girls up in the dorm at 10:35. I've since concluded they should have locked the guys up at 10:35. It'd been a better deal. So, but I lived with a guy named Harry Gordon, big old tall guy, became a pharmacist down in Wichita Falls. But he was my roommate, and he and I'd go over to the girls' dorm every night about midnight, and that'll give you a clue. and we get a ladder from behind these people's house. And we go over to the dorm, slap that ladder, and I'd crawl up there, excuse me, and I'd peck on that window, and Mary would never come to the window. Some of her friends would come up, and they'd try to shoo me away. And so one night, Harry and I went over there, and we couldn't find the ladder. And Larry, being my best friend, Harry being my best friend, he said, "I'll be your ladder." He's big talking. So we go over there, and I take my shoes off, and I get on his shoulders, and he stands up. And I get kind of on my toes like this and hook my arm over that ledge, and I peck, and I peck, and I peck. And Mary won't come to the window. And about that time, the campus police came around the corner. They hit us with a spotlight. And something happened that I've never forgotten in my entire life. My best friend, Harry Gordon, ran out from under me. You learn as you go through life. Well, I left Southwestern shortly after that. Finally got down to the University of Oklahoma. My brother had to help get me in. He said, yes, and he's been in the Navy. He's a little wild. He's a little crazy, but give him a chance, and they did. So I go down and I tell the advisor, I said, listen, I want a degree in meteorology. And they said, well, we just have a master's and a PhD. You can start with a math, physics, or chemistry, and option in meteorology. So I took the math and meteorology. Meteorology is basically mathematics and physics is what it is. And at OU, as far as I was concerned, it was a nightmare to get through. But I finally got in it. 4 years, you know, Mary worked, I worked, we went to school, and we finally got out. I finally graduated, and I always dreamed about being a television meteorologist. I always thought about Harry Volkman. And so I get out of school, and I lined up several auditions. And I went to the auditions. I did the auditions, and I got refusal letters. Nobody would hire me. So I had to have a job, right, of some kind. So two other guys and I decided we'd put in a consulting business in Oklahoma City, agriculture, industry, and aviation, and needed weather. And really, it was not to be because we were too young, we were having too much fun, we didn't really take it seriously. And I just recall we had a few good clients, and we had one who could have been a potentially good client. And the reason I say it just wasn't meant to be. This guy comes in, a little restaurant there at Wally Post Airport, and we shake hands, and when I put my hand down, it goes in my coffee cup. I yell, and I just splattered this poor dude with coffee, and I screamed like a little girl. You know, I'm sorry, girls, but I did. I screamed like a little boy that hadn't gone through puberty yet. I just screamed bloody murder, and he was a non-potential client after that. And so, but our best client was Shamrock Airlines, and they flew the Blazer hockey team around. And every morning I'd take the forecast up to them. And so one morning I heard these set of high heels coming down the stairs. And I knew it was one of the stewardesses. I thought, boy, this will be good. So I get down and I get ready because I love to scare people. And she came around the corner and I jumped out and I yelled. And she just screamed and fell over against the wall. And unfortunately, it was the executive vice president's wife of the airlines. And so right after that, I got some good news that we were going to have a baby. So I really had to get a real job. I sent out letters to many private consulting companies around the country, and only one answered. That was A.H. Glenn in New Orleans. A.H. Glenn and Associates, experts in meteorology, oceanography, and civil engineering. And I went down, and I did not want to go because being in New Orleans with A.H. Glenn was not part of my dream. I'm sorry, but when I look back, I know that this was all part of it. I had to go there because I gained experience. It was just invaluable what I'd be facing here in Oklahoma when I did come back. But he was a tough guy. Things have changed, you know, in recent years, but he was tough. You know, he didn't let anybody off on a holiday because he believed you let one person off, you had to let them all off. Think about that. Was that scary? But he's exceptionally brilliant, and I just thank God I got to go there and be with him, even though for years I hated him, and it took years and years before I really realized what a great thing it was. So it was all part of the deal. So I'm down there. I quit my job, no job to go to, and Mary and me and our baby come back to Oklahoma. And she finds a job at the radio station. I can't find a job. I finally get one trying to sell advertising. Anyone here ever sell advertising? Don't. I tried, and I couldn't, you know, everything I sold was a bad debt. So finally, I got a job at the radio station at KTOK Radio, and man, we created the 805-pound thunder lizard. It was this imaginary character that did all these things, and it was really wild. On a clear summer day, on a cloud in the sky, I ran the tornado beeps. And you know what? In my business, you're looking for attention. You try to get that going, and boy, it brought some attention. But finally, one day the phone rang, and it was a general manager at Channel 9. And he said, Gary, I've heard you on the radio. You sound a little bit crazy, but I want to talk to you. So I went out there and auditioned, and they offered me the job. I couldn't believe it because, all those years I'd want to be on television. I had tried. When I was in New Orleans, I'd gone down to the news director of one of those stations in New Orleans, and he said, I don't see the value in having a meteorologist now or ever. He was really rude. So there I am. Channel 9's hired me, and, I didn't have a suit. So we went down to Hobart. Mary's from Hobart, Oklahoma, southwest part of the state. We went to Levine's department store, and it bought me a maroon jacket and powder blue pants and a multicolored shirt. And, baby, I was styling. I had a job in television. I've been 15 years since I saw Harry on the tube, and I finally was there. I looked a little funny in that outfit, but it was great times. Finally got a job. Well, a lot of crazy things happen in television. And, all the time we were in New Orleans, I wanted to come home. I got to do it, finally got to do it. And, in television, we look for things that kind of promotional-wise, like if you're in business or if you're in research, you want something to bring you up above the herd. You look better, there's better publicity and all that stuff. So a lot of times for us in television, it's just promotion. And the people over at Hinton, Oklahoma called me up. It was the Hinton Rodeo. They said, listen, we'd like for you to ride in the parade at Hinton, Oklahoma. I said, well, what do you want me to do? And they said, we want you to just ride beside the queen of the parade, or queen of the rodeo. And I said, now listen, I want a good horse. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I've been bitten, I've been kicked, and I've been thrown off of horses. I want a good horse. So I get there that day. You guys remember the movie Cat Ballou? That old sway back and leaning against the fence. And I looked at it, I said, man, this horse is right out of the movies. But I got on it, kind of swayed back, and we went to town just like that. It was great, just plop, plop. And we line up, as I recall, the queen's over here on her horse, and the band starts up, and, and everyone starts to move, and my horse doesn't move. And then when they get about here to you, my horse bolts down there where the queen is, slams into her horse, and drives her into the back of a car. And I'm going, golly, and then no one seemed to care. So we get all lined up again, and it happened again. And finally, when I got back to the corral, I said, what's wrong with that horse? And the boy said, what happened? And I told him. He said, oh, there's nothing wrong with that horse. He said, that is a rodeo pickup horse. And the guy's on the bronc. That's the horse that runs out, slams in the side, and pulls the rider off. That horse was just doing his job. Fortunately, their main street was very short because it was really crazy. Well, the circus came to town. And they called up and said, listen, we'd like you to ride in the parade. I said, okay, what do you want me to ride? And they said, an elephant. There's a long parade through downtown Oklahoma City. And they said, we're going to have 20 elephants and 20 people from the media to be on those elephants. So this was in the day of the double knit pants. And I show up down there for the parade, and I noticed 19 guys and gals up there, and they got on their blue jeans. And I've got my fancy double knit pants. And for you kids know what that is. It means that they're real loosely woven things come through them. Okay, elephant hair up on top's about that long, all right? I rode 2 miles that day. It was interesting. My boss kept saying, you need to be careful what you accept. I said, okay, but I was just excited to have a job, and they called up from Purcell, Oklahoma. Said, we'd like for you to be in rodeo. I'd learning a little bit. I said, because none of this had been in my dream, but it's all part of doing what you have to do. I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, we'd like for you to ride a bull. I said, The guy said, now, Gary, we have a trained bull. And this is where I made my mistake. I said, well, how's that work? He said, you get on the bull, and you open the gate, and he walks out, and you blow a whistle, and he'll buck, and you blow a whistle, and he'll stop bucking. And in my business, I thought about that about 2 seconds. I said, you got a deal, I'll have the whistle in my mouth. So I got on television and radio for 3 months. It's a good lesson for you kids. I talked myself into the corner. I talked about, come see me down at Purcell. I'm going to ride a wild bull and all this stuff. And I just talked about it to the point where I couldn't back out. And a week or so before the rodeo, I received a book in the mail. And I opened that up, and it was on bull riding. I remember thinking, why in the world would I need a book on bull riding? I fanned through it, and I just remember one line stuck with me all these years. It, violent random motion. But I had a little concern there, but not a lot. So I go down there that day, and you got a picture of what it looked like. I had on a big white hat, red, white, and blue shirt, and I had on blue jeans, but they were bell-bottom. They were really cowboy blue jeans, and I didn't have regular cowboy boots. I had blue patent leather boots from Napoleon Nash. And that bull took one look at me. God, he started thrashing around in that chute. He knew I was brand new, and he just scared the living daylights out of me. The guy's my photographer, had been wounded 3 times in Vietnam, and he looked at me and said, Gary, don't do it, don't do it. I said, thank you, Ray B., thank you. So I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. You talk yourself in the corner, and, you know, bull's back's pretty wide, and it's solid muscle. And I'd try to sit down on him, but every time I'd really try to sit down, he'd try to hook my left leg with his left horn. He had a matching horn on the other side, but that concerned me quite a bit. But when they move, you can just feel their muscles ripple along your legs, and you're going, God, I can't believe this. Well, they basically tie your hand down. Do you know that? I'm just like this. They got that hand tied down, and I know my eyes are big as silver dollars. And I went to this guy, and the guy's helped me, real cowboy. A little bit of tobacco right here, a couple of teeth missing, old dirty hat, you know, shirt's a little red. I sure a bull had knocked his teeth out. And I said, where do I look? And he held up his hand right in front of me. He said, look right at my hand. And I went, no, when I get out there. He looked at a big old toothless grin. He said, you ain't going to have to worry about that. Well, it wasn't a trained bull, obviously. And when you get into television, a lot of things happen. Like, you know, I'd wanted to be in it 15 years, got into it, but little did I know, as we look at this DVD, that sometimes like this coming up, we're ahead.
Normals of 70. We had a 92 this afternoon and a 92 on the normals, I mentioned, and records for this. Yeah, we got a bug spray around this place. At Guyman, 70 at Ardmore, we have a little drog, we have a little frog.
A camper started the blaze, this is how it happened, by lighting toilet paper on fire. The blaze ate up more than 4,100 acres last night, and it's nothing to laugh at, although you really wonder, you know, what was going on there. Crews have it about 30% contained this evening, though.
Can you go? Okay, do you want me to do the currents?
At least you ever read that story.
At least he was big enough to admit it, I guess. Yeah.
I've always wanted to do the currents, may I? Okay, let's do the
conditions.
currents, and I'm going to do it.
Showers, thunderstorms, what's left of them, moving on in.
That green building you see in the graphic right there is where Gary was talking about last night in his transmitter. Transmitter sends the pulse up the radar tower up to the antenna, where the antenna sends out a pencil width beam out towards the thunderstorm, and out there it interrogates the thunderstorm, gets the data, and then goes back into the radar tower, and then back into
Look at our hot shot.
What a beauty.
That's India.
It's going to start the giggles all over again. How great.
Okay.
That's good. That's good stuff.
Kelly?
If you have questions or concerns about the high gas prices, you're invited to air them at a public gas forum. The forum will be held Tuesday at 7 o'clock at Rose State College. Maybe we should reword that. We'll call that a gas forum that is open to the public. We'll see.
Oh, that's Oink the Singing Pig.
Oh. Great ones through the years. Well, you know, tornadoes have always been with me through my 41 years at News 9. A lot of small ones, some big ones. You know, it was always a busy time spring. Sometimes other times, you all have experienced them down here. I have to tell you, sometimes it was kind of fun times when they didn't do much. There's a fellow by the name of Alan Mitchell. You all know him? Yeah, Alan used to work with me. Great guy. He came to me years and years ago, and he just out of the Air Force. He had the most beautiful hair in the world, this long silver hair, and a lot of it, okay? He had the beautiful hair, and he was a yes sir, no sir kind of guy, and he got things done. His tie was always, his coat was, he just was all around super. In 1986, a tornadic thunderstorm was developing southwest of Oklahoma City, a few miles. We got reports of wall clouds and a few funnel clouds, and then some hail and baseball-sized hail. It was pretty chaotic in there, a lot of information flowing in. And I finally turned to Alan. I said, Alan, why don't you go out behind and look? Alan said, yes, sir. He disappeared. A few minutes later, I sensed someone behind me, and it was Alan. I turned around, and I said, Alan. He went, you. And he's pointing at the back door, and he finally said, you better come and look at this. So we ran out the back door. The entire sky was rotating. In those days, we did updates. I had to go back in and do an update. And when I was running down the hall, I knew I was going to get on the air and yell, you're all going to die! You're going to die! But we kept it under control. At one of my 40th anniversary parties, Alan showed up. He came up, and we had a great time. He's a great guy. Well, along came May 3rd, 1999. And even back then, we knew several days ahead of time there would be severe thunderstorms and a few tornadoes. Severe thunderstorms, a few tornadoes, pretty normal. The morning of May 3rd, 1999, it looked like severe thunderstorms, few tornadoes. Nobody at that time, anybody, knew it was going to turn out the day that it was. And we've improved some, but not totally. But that day we had like 60 tornadoes in our broadcast area. Usually have about 53 in the entire state. So the day rolls along. First, we call it Supercell A, forms down near Lawton, Oklahoma, and it's big, and it gets larger and larger and larger and larger. And it puts down a couple tornadoes. Pow, pow. Moves up, weakens, and they dissipate. It's called cycling. And then a little while later, put down another, a little bit stronger, not abnormal. It's gone. Another one develops. It's a little bit larger than the last one. It continues to cycle. It gets up near Chickasha, Oklahoma, and some of you may recall a picture of this giant stovepipe tornado with a satellite tornado rotating around. The one rotating around was as large as an average Oklahoma tornado. It was pretty scary stuff. It went up just north of Chickasha. Of course, we're watching it live in the helicopter and getting ground shots in and our storm trackers, and it gets up just north of Chickasha, southwest of Bridge Creek, and tornado's gone. And you look at it, and I don't know exact timing. I need to go back in time. In about 2 minutes, it was back, and it was 2 miles wide. And it was just, ooh. And, it was moving toward a populated area. And, and it got into the one populated area, Bridge Creek, and you could see some of the power lines just pow, 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 pow. And people are dying when that's happening, usually, because it's in a populated area. And I'm looking at this, and it's a full-blown major tornado like nothing I'd ever seen before in my life. So I knew I had to say a few things differently. And I'll tell you this, and keeping in mind that you can't do this with every tornado. It was a long time out. It formed about 4:30, got to Oklahoma City about 7, so we had a lot of time. So one of the first things I said before it got to Moore in southwest Oklahoma City, I said, I know Okies, okay? I said, don't go outside and look at this. It will kill you. Because, you can tell when there's a tornado in Oklahoma, right? The mouth comes open. Yeah. So I said, don't go outside and look at it. I'm sure a lot of people did anyway. But it just kept coming. And I think the next statement I made a little while later was that most structures will not survive this tornado. And a few minutes later, I said, you people in Moore have time to move to a place of safety. Some tornadoes you can do that, some not. This one everybody knew it was coming, or almost everyone. We had plenty of time for that. But I said, you still have time to move to a place of safety. And then I said, last thing I said is, you need to be below ground level if you possibly can. And people left more by the hundreds, if not the thousands. And they got out of there, which was great. Sometimes we have tornadoes nowadays. You can't do that. But that was an amazing set of tornadoes. I saw one house, not only took the house and everything else, but it pulled the pad up. It was just phenomenal. Strongest winds ever recorded on the face of the earth, up to 315 miles an hour. It was just a monster, just a real monster. And it was quite an experience. One thing we learned, since it was past a month to 6 months, I took a look at the fatality reports and the injuries to figure out what was happening to people. And 20% of the injuries were brain injuries. So what does that say to you? Helmet. If you're not below ground, put helmets on the kid. Football, whatever kind, get a helmet on them. A lot of kids had a lot of injuries, eye injuries. And I just say, shatter-resistant goggles. It's pretty simple. So I started beating on that years ago. It became very obvious that that was the thing to do until they made some other arrangements. Well, then comes this last spring, and we had a bunch of different tornadoes. We had May 19th and May 20th and May 31st. Now, the tape I'm going to show you right now is part of it's behind the scenes, and part of it is what was really going on that we were showing on there. Some of it will just be us in there while someone else is out there talking. So if we can roll that, we'll take a look.
It's going to cross the road right ahead of us. There it is, Gary. Right ahead of us. Oh, power flashes. Power flashes right there on the road. It just crossed the road. Okay, Gary, we are 3 miles straight north of Luther right now. The tornado is 1/2 of a mile straight east of us, and it is getting bigger.
It's crossing the road. Oh, power flashes in Kearney. Crossing the highway right now.
Alan, go ahead.
Storm action team.
Go ahead, Alan.
God. Debris. Lots and lots of debris. Oh my gosh, Gary. There's lots of stuff being hit right here.
Wow, look at the violence of that thing.
This damaging tornado is going through Kearney at this moment. We're gonna need state troopers out here. We're gonna need EMTs.
It's pulling that water up out of that little inlet. Look at that. Look at that, Gary. That's just amazing. Just another big tornado.
Big wedge-shaped tornado. Big wedge-shaped tornado. It's gotten wider. I've got people on the highway up there. Gosh, these people need to get the heck out of Dodge. This tornado is bearing down. It's a very strong tornado.
So right now it appears the danger area.
Gary,
yeah, go ahead.
Developing tornadic signature near Council Road and Northwest 24th Street.
Okay.
There's your tornado warning.
Tornado warning.
That's it right now.
It's going to be for the Newcastle storm.
It has just destroyed everything that it has hit, and it is turning into a huge tornado. Look at the wedge at the bottom of that.
Where did he say he was?
Tornado vortex signature.
Large and violent tornado crossing western right now. I'm at 134th. It's a half mile south of me. EF4, possibly an EF5.
Yes, Gary, this thing is on 149th Street. It's right in front of us. It is tearing up everything it hits. The sky is absolutely full of debris. Gary, I see boards, I see roofs of houses, I see tin. Everything is flying through the air. We're getting probably 80-mile-an-hour winds at our location. This thing is 1/4 of a mile north of us. It's on 149th, and Gary, it is moving straight east right along 149th Street. Man, if you live there, yeah. 149th Street, I guess. Okay. There is just a ton of debris. I see all different. Gary,
it's in between Portland and May, right on Southwest 149th. Okay. On Moar, you can see the debris ball. Southwest 149th, directly between Portland and May. Anybody who lives east and northeast of that location, prepare for a violent tornado right now on the west side of Moore.
That's a huge debris ball. That's houses and trees and such.
Sky News 9 HD.
Okay, I believe that's Santa Fe right there. Is a log jam. It's a log jam right there. Now this tornado is only about 1/4 mile west of that road right there, and it's just log jammed right in there.
Right now should go a little south of Del City, but there's never any guarantees on this. Giant tornado continues.
Oh, look how big that is.
So have so many power lines around here, Val. I want you to be careful. Please be careful right here. I will. Val, back up. I'm backing up. I'm backing.
If you live in a residential area, you're out ahead of this thing. You've got to go below ground. This is a killer tornado. We have debris being strewn out everywhere out ahead of this thing, and this is another deadly tornado coming through more. It's amazing that it's happening again, Gary.
And a Moore police officer just told me just a short time ago there is an elementary school that was hit. I asked if there were kids inside that elementary school. He said yes. So right now what you're seeing, parents in this area, tears coming down their faces, going into this area, not sure what the heck they are going to see when they get into this neighborhood.
Jim Gardner, does that look like a school to you?
Yes, it is. It is, Kelly.
Oh.
This is just this ain't good. That's for
No,
sure.
it's not. That's
people are digging through the debris. Sorry, Kelly. It just gets a little hard to talk here.
Jim, if you can hear me, hold that shot of I-35. Those people.
We expect thunderstorms to start developing just to the west of Oklahoma City during the next 1 to 2 hours. Once they start, it will be explosive development. The purple is probably the likely area for significant tornadoes, and that includes the Oklahoma City area.
Tornado watch continues in effect.
But chances are, instead of continuing that, they're going to do this.
If you know anyone traveling out there, call on your cell phone, tell them to shut it down wherever they are. If they're out in the El Reno area on I-40, shut it down.
As these storms move east, now, it's favorable where they are now to produce severe weather and tornadoes. The more they go east, the more favorable the conditions become.
Hey, Bobby, I need you to hold your ground where you are. These things are going to come east right down I-40 into west parts of the metro.
Huge tornado vortex, and also we've got it on Davis Stream. Hank's got it for sure in South El Reno. Take your immediate tornado precautions.
Gary, the whole thing's on the ground. It's on the ground right now, and it's going to be a mile and a half, nearly 2 miles south of I-40 at 270. It's exactly where I am.
And Hank, if you're still on there, can you give me any?
I'm at the Reno Cinema, which is a movie theater south of El Reno on Country Club Road. And I'm looking to the southwest. I can't tell if there's a tornado or not. What I can tell you is the whole sky is sitting on the ground, and it is just churning.
You know, the El Reno area, the whole thing is wrapping up, guys. I tell you, this is not good news.
And it's not really moving that much. It's not moving that much. It's on the field. It's in the field right in front of us.
You guys, David and Val, you're not in a good position. You guys listen to me. You're not in a good position. This thing is very, very close to you. You don't need to get that close. You're in the circulation. I'm telling you.
It's not moving, though.
We can. Well, let me tell you. You may think it's not moving, but it is moving.
Hey, Gary, it looks like there's some kind of a gas plant between me and the tornado. There's some kind of a gas plant.
Keep an eye also on Skyline City gets you things. Hey, he's buffering something.
This is nothing you mess with. It is a major, major tornadic circulation.
Probably south of I-40, about 3 miles right now. Right in front of us, large, multiple, serious. This is a serious tornado, Gary.
You need to get below ground if you possibly can. You can't outrun it. I mean, if it's on top of you, very close to you, don't try it. It is a life-threatening storm.
I was told they're looking for a child and a mother who may be missing from a car out at the way station between El Reno and Yukon. That's right in that area where it's supposedly crossed, and they got power lines down on the I-40 as well.
And the hook keeps wrapping up. It's titanic in size. The wind speeds continue to be extreme.
They're phenomenal.
We see things on Doppler radar, shows the velocity like we've never really seen anything like this strong.
Guys in Yukon, take your immediate tornado precautions. We cannot say it any clearer than that. This thing may be wrapped in rain at times as well. It's a very, very dangerous thing.
North of Interstate 40 in eastern Canadian County, take your tornado precautions. This thing is absolutely horrendous.
There comes the tornado. This is at that's south of I-44, and I-240, southwest part of Oklahoma City, just east of the airport.
Gary, this is worst case scenario, is what you said earlier this morning, and we're seeing it.
Being in a car in a tornado is a really bad idea, and you got to find a place to go. And it might even be in a ditch, but you can find a building somewhere. If you're at home, below ground is best, and if you don't have below ground like a cellar, safe room, or such, get in the middle part of your house, put as many walls between you and the tornado as possible. Shatter-resistant goggles, helmet, long sleeve shirt, long pants, heavy shoes, and unfortunately, if you're trapped at home, you'll just have to ride it out. Don't jump in your car and drive out into this storm, because you may well become a fatality if this happens. This is already a deadly tornado.
Well, those were times that I never visualized in my big dreams in the years past. I didn't realize that was going to be a part of it, things like that. On the 19th, we had some tornadoes around. Storm trackers got out of control. Wasn't a very pleasant environment. We had a couple of fatalities. And then the Moore tornado really was worst case scenario. And I'd talked about it for years. Some of you may have heard me talk about it. I came to every club there's been. And it was, hey, worst case, school sensation, large tornado on the ground moving toward the schools, and the parents will try to get to the school. And it could have been much worse than it was. But fortunately, a lot of people heeded that warning early. Take care of your kids, make sure you got them, all these things. And we hammered for 2 hours before the tornado ever formed. And I didn't really know what exactly had happened, but I visited with a teacher from Briarwood a while back, and it was very rewarding. She said that each class had 22 kids. By the time the tornado got to their school, she only had 8. All the rest of them had been picked up by their parents. So a large number were picked up. Otherwise, it would have been much worse than it was. But large tornado on the ground, coming toward here, school time, worst case scenario. So you got to have that early advance warning as you can possibly get. Well, May 31st ended up being the largest tornado in history, and probably just about as strong as the May 3rd. It formed, got up that morning, what did it look like? Severe thunderstorms, few tornadoes. Just kind of the way it looked. But then as the day went, it was pretty obvious there was going to be some big, ugly tornadoes. Well, it was just one big, ugly one, and it formed. Several storms formed, but this one kept growing. It's southwest Canadian county, and really behind the scenes, let me just put it, it was ingesting other thunderstorms. It was pulling them in. Boom, boom. We call it eating the other storms. That's what we talk about behind it. It's eating the other storm. You see a big thunderstorm come, you just grab it. And each time it happened, it got larger and larger. And the damage path, 2.6 miles wide. Now, if you take the wind of an EF0, 60 mile an hour to 60 mile an hour, it was 4 miles wide. But where it's really doing its stuff was 2.6 miles wide. You have to picture it. The entire thunderstorm's rotating. You got the mesocyclone. You have big tornadoes, little tornadoes. Sometimes you have huge, and we have what we call subvortices. Some of the subvortices were like 3 football fields put end to end. That's how wide they were. And there'd be multiple vortex here, single here. But one of the more amazing things I saw was that the individual tornadoes, and there were a lot of them, and they were moving very rapidly, and we couldn't tell us until the Doppler radar data had been analyzed much later. But you might be watching at that tornado right there and saying, wow, boy, let me get this thing. Another one forms over here. Your history, because some of those individual tornadoes were moving forward speed down the road 175 miles an hour. You don't have any time. And it caught a lot of people. A lot of things were said on the air that should not have been said that day. There were a lot of people put at risk that should have not been put at risk that day. And so it was pretty much of a nightmare deal. Overall, if that tornado had been in a densely populated area, it'd probably been a major tragedy of all times. Fortunately, time it got to Oklahoma City and North Moore and Norman, it was much weaker, and what a big deal. But that was quite a storm. If you just imagine, the tornado develops and it's moving at you, and they develop like that at 176 miles an hour. I'm sure we got some really smart people in here. They can figure out how much time you got in about 30 seconds. It's on top of you. You have no choice. Well, it was a big storm, really a scary day for a lot of people. A lot of people drowned that day. And when that day was over, and normally with a big severe weather event, somewhere in the evening, Mary will call me and said, you want me to come and get you? And usually she'll come and pick me up, take me home, leave my car there. But this time, about 8:30, I called her. And I said, Mary, come get me. And so she drove out the station. She said, I'm out behind. She called and said, I'm out behind. So I got in the car, walked out there, Opened up, got in. I said, you know what, Mary? That's it. No more. It's over. So you guys are getting the story of how it really ended. I took myself off the air because I thought, this is enough. 40 years of death and destruction and human suffering. It was enough. But I have been living my dream, though, for 40, 41 years. You know, I always saw it in my mind. I always saw myself being there, but I never visualized some of these type of things that came up. But I was living my dream for 41 years. So I say to all of you, you kids, anybody, I don't care what age you are, keep dreaming the big dreams, because I'm living proof that dreams come true. Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you that have been with me so many years. Thank you.